Okay, so I love writing stories, and in my 4-H, I have seen a lot of different writings, and I've used a lot of different writing skills. And one of the projects for 4-H is do your own thing, which I do my own thing by writing stories. And I wrote a book that has all kinds of stuff in it. It has a dedication page, poems, short stories, research topics, long stories, healthy recipes for the whole family, and facts about the author, which would be me. And I just thought I'd share some of my short stories with you in case you didn't get a chance to read them at the full and county for each. So here we go. First story is Breaking Past. Have you ever had something that was extremely challenging for you to get past? What did you do to get past it? How did you feel in the end? I've been through many challenges and can tell you one thing, that if you have perseverance and a commitment to the challenge, you are more likely to overcome your challenge instead of letting it defeat you. Many people learn how to say their first words by the time they're 2, or at least they can stutter their first words. I was 2 years behind this. My parents thought I was deaf, but they kept hoping that I would be able to talk. The year I turned 4, I learned how to talk. I could finally utter a few words by the time I was 5. My parents were so relieved by the progress. It was a shame the accidents that occurred. One day I was out trying to help my dad stack up wood, and when one of the logs from the top rolled away, I didn't see it coming closer to my head. But then crash! I felt it hit my head hard. My head started gushing blood, and my dad rushed me to the hospital after he grabbed a cool, wet washcloth to hold on my head. At the hospital, the doctor sewed up my head and told my dad I had got a concussion. My head was hurt so badly that I quit talking. My parents were devastated and knew that I would have to start learning how to talk before school started. They called in a therapist and speech pathologist to help me learn to talk again. I was getting better and my head was healing up. Finally, I was able to talk again, although it was a week after school had started. My parents still enrolled me, and I was able to go to school. At school, I was so quiet that everyone thought I was deaf, though I listened and followed directions excellently. The counselor at the school became worried and asked my parents if I could talk. My parents told her that I could only say a few words, but they were trying to help me learn to say more. The counselor suggested that they work with the speech teacher to help me, and that's how it went for the first few years of school. I would work with a speech therapist to learn how to talk, though I could read and write. I was still a little weak in talking. I developed this skill even more by starting to talk in front of big groups of people, which really scared me at first, but the fear died down during the end of 7th grade. Now I'm going to begin 9th grade. I love talking in front of a large group of people. Though illness sometimes knocks me down, I am able to get up most of the time. I am proud to have accomplished the ability to talk. Going to prove myself if I can overcome that. I can overcome almost every task placed in front of me. I may not be the one to start a conversation, but I always am quite talkative when I am involved in a conversation on a topic I like, and sometimes on subjects I don't like. As with anybody, I will still face challenges, but I am determined to overcome these challenges. The next one is a bull rider. That was great skill, Mr. Ben Keith on Blue Ben. Next up, Jordan Lewis on a black jacket. The announcer's voice boomed out of the megaphone. The bull snorted and huffed as I got a good hard grip on him. The gate swung open and the bull darted out as a kicking, bucking mess. The bull tried to get out, but I pulled on him to go back down in the ring. He lost his grip and fell to the ground on top of me. After he got back up, he hooked me with his horn and threw me to the far end of the pen. He started to run after me, but a red flag distracted him. I lay there with pain surging through my body. I tried to get up, but that made me hurt worse. Having my dad die from one of these accidents, I was a little scared, but stayed calm. My Uncle Ted came rushing in with the paramedics. His new girlfriend, Miss Howard, stayed nearby, shaking with fear. After they had gently laid me on a stretcher and loaded me into an ambulance, Ted and Miss Howard jumped in. We quickly sped off to the nearby ER while doctors started doing tests. My Uncle Ted took a still slightly shaking Miss Howard to the waiting room. He called my cousins Ashley and told her the news. She told my other cousins, Melissa, Sarah, Texan, Keith, and my Aunt Becky. My Aunt Becky started crying and shaking while she drove to the hospital. The doctors gave me several shots and an IV while they started a surgery on my back. Becky was a complete mess, probably because she had been the one that was with my dad when he died from the bull riding accident. Ted tried to comfort her, but she just pulled away. My cousins sat in a circle, holding hands, praying. Miss Howard quit shaking and went over to pray with my cousins. The surgery was a complete success. When it was over, they put a brace on me and began surgery on my legs. One of the doctors went out and pulled my Uncle Ted aside. Her surgery on her back was a complete success, and we started the surgery on her legs, but it doesn't look good. She may be paralyzed for the rest of her life. She may have also undergone some traumatic trauma due to the death of her father. But we will know more after the surgery. The doctor told me before leaving to get back to the surgery room. When this surgery was done, the doctors confirmed that I was paralyzed from my knees down and would probably never be able to be a bull rider again. Ted, Becky, my cousins, and Miss Howard came in to see me after the doctors had put me in a bed for a little bit of rest before they sent me home. "Honey, are you doing okay?" Becky asked. I just looked at her and said nothing. It seemed as though I was far away, and I wasn't making anything out straight. "Honey, can you hear me?" Becky asked again, trying harder to make me see her. She was becoming scared that I wasn't really going to make it. Again I said nothing. "Honey," she tried for the last time, but again I did not respond, and she started crying. Uncle Ted tried again to give her a hug and comfort her. This time she let him. For a few minutes Uncle Ted sat there holding on to Becky. Becky finally got up and went to go get the doctor. "Doctor, she's not responding. What's wrong with her?" "Will she make it?" Becky asked. "She'll be okay, but I have to be honest. She did break her back. Is paralyzed from the knees down. Probably won't be able to walk again. Is going through some traumatic remembrance of her father's death. Has 2 broken ribs and a punctured lung. So it's going to be a long, hard road back to where she was. But she'll be okay." The doctor reassured Becky before he walked away after giving Becky a hug. My cousins kept coming in and going out as they tried to maintain their regular schedules, as well as Ted and Miss Howard. But Becky stayed by my side, too distressed and unshakable to move from my bedside. When no one was there, I finally moved my head to face Becky. "Becky?" I asked, unsure because my vision was a little cloudy. "Honey, oh my gosh, how are you? I'm here for you. It's okay. I'll get you through this, but I'm in a lot of pain. My head hurts, and so does my stomach. Honey, it's okay. I'll go get the doctor." "Okay, I love you," I told her as she left to go get the doctor to assist the pain. A few minutes later, Becky came back with a doctor who checked out the pain and checked my heart meter and oxygen tank. She gave me some medicine to take away the pain. Then, after making sure that nothing else needed done, and left the room. Becky and I chatted some more, and then I drifted back to sleep. Every day after that, I began to get stronger and not to be as sleepy. The doctors went in and did a surgery on my ribs and sealed up my lung, so it would be less likely for my lung to get hurt from the ribs. The surgery was a success, and soon I was able to go home. Determination. I've been through several struggles in my short lifetime. I have never been the most popular person, the most athletic person, the smartest person, but I've always tried to be someone that I was nice to everyone and respectful of everyone. Sometimes when I needed to be tough, I wasn't, and I went down the wrong road for not being strong enough and not having enough perseverance. When I was around the age of 11, I started my 5th grade year in school with really high spirits, like I always had in the past. I loved coming to school, and I had a ton of friends at school. One of the days at the beginning of the 5th grade, somebody new who showed up in our classroom, and I was nice to them. Like I was to everybody else, was talkative to them, but little did I know she was going to start a downhill slide on my feelings and my reputation at school. One day at lunch, I was eating lunch with the new girl, and we were talking about cute guys and stuff like that, when all of a sudden she asked me who I hated because being sarcastic, I told her Mickey. When I came to school the next day, everybody seemed strange as I passed them. They didn't give me hard stares, and the normal people that I hung out with acted like I wasn't even there. I made jokes like I normally did, but nobody listened. Thinking that it was nothing, I just went about my day like everybody still cared about me. The next day, when I came to school, there was a note on my desk from the new girl. When I opened the note, it said that I was stupid and I didn't belong here. I shoved the note in my bag and I went through the day again, acting all happy. Every week after that, there were more hurtful notes that arrived. I was starting to get mad, but wasn't going to let it show. At the end of the 5th grade year, I started cutting, and my self-esteem was very low. My parents didn't know that any of it was going on at first, because I would hide it, so I wouldn't get into trouble. But I started having a really bad attitude about everything, and pretty soon I found myself in the counselor's office, telling her a lie. After that first lie, I started lying about everything. The next year I went is to start a new school, which I did, and it was the first time in my whole school career that I hadn't felt like starting school. When I began school, my cutting got dreadfully worse, and the lies were an everyday thing. I got in a bunch of trouble that year, getting kicked out of school at least 3 times, over 7 in-school suspensions, and ending up in my first ever behavioral health center because I could not stop cutting. Though adults had tried to convince me not to, and I was in a counseling. My 7th grade year, I was no more eager than I was my 6th year to start school because I didn't really care about school anymore. I became involved with some people that opened other people's lockers and talked about drugs. I also became a vigorous cutter and lied to everyone. I could not tell the truth to save me. Towards the end of the school year, I was having a really hard time, and I felt like the teachers were basically all worn out and didn't really want to deal with me. But I started talking to a teacher that I thought was a really good person and an aide that had known my family forever. When I started talking to these people, I started to stop cutting so vigorously and started telling the truth again. I knew that if anyone was to help me, it would be these people, and with my determination to become a better person and to stop cutting, I was going to become a stronger person. The next year, I was determined to be a fun, loving person, and that's what I became. It happened so suddenly. I had never seen it coming, and nor could I believe what had just happened. My mom was such a great person, and never was anybody ever upset with her. Although I was very upset about my mom, her just collapsing to the floor from a gunshot from a person I knew as Mom's coworker. I knew that I had to protect everyone else from getting hurt. With the gun pointed at me, I kicked Mom's coworker as hard as I could, and the coworker fell to the floor. His gun went off, and the bullet rushed into my leg. Though the bullet was in my leg and the coworker was on the floor, I knew I wasn't done. I called the police, reporting the incident, while I made sure the coworker didn't get up. A few minutes later, the police came to the house with an ambulance as I sat holding a can of pepper spray, watching my mother sprawled in a puddle of blood. And the coworker... No. No, Joe. Please don't. Sorry, that was my annoying brother. A few minutes later, the police came to the house with an ambulance as I sat holding a can of pepper spray, watching my mother sprawled in a puddle of blood, and the coworker struggling to get to the gun, when she lay a few feet away on the floor untouched after it had hit the floor. The paramedics hauled my mom onto a stretcher and ran out as the police handcuffed the coworker, and I ran over to the door and pulled it open to know if all my siblings were okay. My twin sister jumped out and hugged me. Then my 5-year-old brother Jake gave me a high five. Jade and my 3-year-old sister jumped into my arms, and my 2-year-old brother JJ hugged my legs. The 2 baby girls, 3 months old, of Freedom and Faith, were asleep on a blanket. I was so glad that my siblings were all okay, but the pain in my leg from the bullet was beginning to hurt with unstoppable pain. I put Jaden down and told my twin sister Joy that I needed to go to the hospital. And just as I started to collapse, Joy grabbed me and held me in her arms and carried me out to the police car that rushed me to the emergency room. Joy stayed with me while a police officer stayed with the younger siblings. Paramedics came rushing out to assist the situation. I took medicine and blacked out so I wouldn't know what was going on. Joy stayed with the police officer right outside the door to the operating room, where she cried as the police officer tried to reassure her that everything would be okay. A while later, the bullet was out of my leg, and the spot on my leg had been sewn up after it was cleaned out. The doctors had also found out there was another bullet that had slid between my lungs and rib cage. The doctors had taken that bullet out too, and sewn my stomach and chest back up, and had placed a bandage around both sets of stitches. I was also given a lot of pain medicine, and was able to go home when the doctors gave the police the pain medicine I needed to take, and told her how to take care of the injuries. With Joy by my side, I was wheeled out of the hospital by the policewoman who I would come to know as a new aunt and caretaker to my every needs, since she was a part-time paramedic. After a couple of days, my mom was able to come home, but was still in a really bad situation. She had been shot several times by her coworker and was suffering from a hole in her heart. She also had bullets go into her rib cage, eye, leg, arms, and ear. The doctors had told my mother that she was extremely lucky she was still alive. As the days went by, my mom and I struggled to get better so we could take care of everything, though the police officer had told us not to worry because she was there for us and would make sure everything was taken care of. We still worried. I also found out that the coworker had pulled this type of a thing before, but had never actually been caught. So now he was going to be locked up for a long time, and the other convicted killers would be set free, because they actually hadn't done anything. Those people came by the house and thanked me, normally bringing gifts for the family or home-cooked meals. Some of the women had baked cookies and other goodies for our families. One lady even pitched in to cover some of the hospital expenses. I was so glad that the guy had been caught and the other convicted killers had been set free that I made a donation to the other families that had been victims of the co-workers' shootings, and more for my sake, a commitment to always stand up for what's true, even if I'm going to be killed. Some of these stories were true and some of them weren't. Can you guess which ones were? leave your opinions and comments in the below section, and I will respond to them. Thanks.